Alright, this is round 2 of whatever. You can read the description of the video for yourself. That's cool. Let's get on to the game. This has already happened. I recorded it. I did not pay much attention while it was happening because I was eating. So now we will, I guess, discuss it. Again, like the last few videos where I did not record the game, or I am not recording my voice over it live, I'm going to kind of more talk about what I think the players are trying to do with their moves. Um, and then a little of maybe what I think the things to look first at for a reply, but not going to go super in depth on anything because we are lazy. All right, so Tezuka plays 7-3-5-1 in 3. And first thing to notice is Akiyama only has one capture from 6, 7-3-6-1, and Tezuka has a combo there with 7-2-3-5 and 9. So Tezuka is discouraging 7-3-6-1 and 6, which means in turn Tezuka is threatening to go in 2 so as to create possibilities in 6. Akiyama has many captures from 2, but Tezuka has a recapture in 6, and maybe 2 could set up combo potential in 5, but there's no natural combo potential in 9. So I think this starter makes a lot of sense, and I think this tends to be what um, starters in a lot of top level games look like. Because this isn't quite the same as a weak corner. It's a corner that creates a challenge for the opponent. And it's pretty rare that we have something, completely safe. And some people will go to, like, what's the biggest corner I can recapture? But I think the thing that actually tends to create the most problems for the opponent is something that says, here is something you have difficulty capturing in one direction, either because of my combo play or because it happens to be safe in that direction. And that gives me a threat and a game plan to block the square in 2. So instinctively, I think this is quite a nice starter. All right, Akiyama takes it. I shouldn't have gone so forward in the video. I forgot Akiyama plays quickly. Should go like for like 20 seconds at a time so it doesn't skip moves. But Tezuka will help me. He won't play instantly. Excuse me. So Akiyama says, you only have that one recapture from 6, but I can take in 2 such that I have a setup in 5 against 6. I have now discouraged 7-2-3-5 and 6 because I have 5-3-5-4. So if you're Tezuka, I think you kind of always consider 3 moves here. There are 3 basic conceptual ideas. 1, go in 6 and recapture. Now that one, 5-3-5-4 and 5 looks scary. I think you do want to check a little further there actually, if you're, doing due diligence. One thing is you might notice, okay, if I could play in 1 or 9, locking in 2 or 6, and it was safe, I'm down 6-4 there, but actually that position's not so terrible. That's often promising if I have good cards for the end game. So like it's perfectly possible that 7-2-3-5 and 6, 5-3-5-4 and 5, and then say 4-6-3-4 and 9 is actually okay. That card is safe, and you might have decent cards for that endgame. So just to say, like, you don't necessarily want to stop your calculation once you see the big combo. But once you see this, you might think they're going to see this, and in fact, they don't have to play 5-3-5-4 and 5 immediately. They might be able to play after 7-2-3-5 and 6 something like 4-4-4-5 and 8 when now 5-3-5-4 has both 5 and 9. So there's stuff to check there, and I'm not saying that's an appealing line. I'm just saying it's easy to stop thinking there when in fact it's okay, right? And if this position turns out to be really bad, we will be looking for something that's like okay or mediocre, and it's possible that will apply. On the other hand, I'm not sold this position's going to be particularly bad. It's just this is the first move I think to check. The next move to check is 1. And by far the most important trait of a move in 1 is that it is safe. Um, as I've said very frequently, when there's 3 cards in a line at the start of a game in a row or column, um, though not going through 5, meaning on the edge of the board, um, if second turn is up 6-4, but first turn has the only safe card on board, that's usually fairly balanced. So like 4-5-6-1 and 1 is not only the highest card facing down, but if the game's going to be facing up, probably the card we least are excited to have in our hand. So 4-5-6-1 and 1 makes sense as a candidate move. However, I notice this is not safe, but we do have a lot of combo potential against the only capture. So I think 4-5-6-1 and 1 is probably a reasonable move. Um, though there's certainly going to be a game after. Akiyama has lots of options. I will say, I think moves like this work better in some sense the weaker your opponent is. And that might be true of, every move. But it's one of those things of like, it gives them a lot of options. They have the capture in 4, which is probably not good, but maybe an option. They have blocks in 5, which Akiyama plays quite a bit of. They have L's in 6. There are a number of options. And actually, I think there's sort of a curve here, right? When you are playing a significantly weaker player, you tend to want to give them lots of options, right? Because if you narrow the path for them, they will be kind of often forced to play these correct moves. As a player gets better, the more options you give them, the more they are able to find the best path within those many options, and the more they're likely to find something you didn't find when you were looking at the move, right? If you play this move and you had other moves you had to check, and they have like 5 different plausible replies, you're going to have missed something down the road of one of them. That doesn't mean you're going to lose or have got something super wrong, but you're going to have missed something somewhere. And so I think there's sort of costs as the players get better. But then, as we saw in the Triad Wars finals, where I think Turds played fantastically well, but there was a position like this where Turds was in fact winning, but there were many appealing options in it was 2, 5, and 8 in that game, and he ended up not finding the right one. He played the second best move, but the second best move wasn't winning, the best move was. So I think there is a point where it's also like, if you're in a bit of trouble, playing a path where you're definitely worse, but they have a ton of options, can make it hard for them to find the exact right one. And it sort of can come around. Anyway, that's not too important. The final square to check is 4. And 4, the most important thing is you set up a combo in 5, but setting up a combo in 1 can help as well. Now, 4, 6, 3, 4 can't be set up there, neither can 4, 5, 6, 1, nor can 3, 4, 3, 7, but 7, 2, 3, 5 can. Yeah, 4, 5, 6, 1, and 4 sets up 7, 2, 3, 5 to have both 1 and 5. Can it be comboed back from 6? Because I noticed the 7 facing the 3 overpowers it. So if you set them up for something in 6, that's really bad for you, but it doesn't look like you do. That seems very promising. So I think 7, 2, 3, 5, and 6 looks terrible, but is probably better than it looks. May still be losing, but is probably better than it looks. I think 4, 5, 6, 1, and 1 is probably like a little bad, but I think 4, 5, 6, 1, and 4 is pretty promising. It's also really hard for them to block 1. There's lots of times where people set up the big combo and like feel like they're playing aggressively, but actually you end up on the defensive, because if the opponent just blocks 1, you take the combo in 5. Sure, it flips 3, then they recapture 3, or they go 7, and it ends up being a second turn favorable formation. But here, Akiyama doesn't have a card he can put in 1 as long as 5 is open, right? He has nothing with a 5 facing to the right. So I think a lot of people think they're playing for a win when they play this big setup in 4, and it is more often playing for a tie, I think, than other moves. Like, I think I am surprised when it looks really bad to me how often moves in 4 the solver says are a tie, but I am also surprised by how little it thinks they're winning. It's a really tie-oriented move with perfect play, and humans do not play perfectly, but we're on move 3, so at the top levels there's less room for mistake, after this point. And yeah, it's one of those things. There's so much evidence to this now. All the moves we think of as like aggressive and combative, or at least I do, are kind of more tie oriented than we think. And all the moves that I think of as like defensive, those have a much higher win rate. For what that's worth. Okay, let's see which one Tezuka does. Tezuka goes in 4. That's fun to see. And Akiyama plays really quickly, maybe? No, not that quickly. So Tezuka plays it around 9 minutes. And, okay, Akiyama takes 3.5 to reply. That is a long thing for Akiyama. Okay. And he blocks 5. This makes a lot of sense, because now he can go in 1 if needed. So Tezuka is obliged to block 1, If Tezuka doesn't play 1, there's almost no chance Akiyama's in serious trouble. Now I'm saying that without any calculation, so someone will be like, blah 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 wins, and I'll be like, yep, I'm wrong, I'm stupid. But 1 is so valuable at this point that you kind of have to assume Tezuka has to go there. Now this looks terrible for Akiyama, but if, for instance, 7235 lands in 1, which combos through, then suddenly 7361 is safe in 6, and the score is 5-5. And while it feels like Tezuka should have sweepers there, if he goes after 1 and 6, if he goes 4-6-3-4 and 1 to have 3-4-3-7 sweep, Akiyama can play 4-4-4-5 and 9, and 3-4-3-7 doesn't flip anything. And if 3-4-3-7 starts in 9 so that 4-6-3-4 can sweep, then Akiyama can play the same card in 7, and somehow 4-6-3-4 doesn't take anything. So I guess there's 4-6-3-4 and 1 is also an option. You don't have to take the combo, and you keep 7-2-3-5 in your hand, which controls 7-3-6-1, but then that didn't flip 3. So Akiyama can play 4-4-7-3 and 6 there. And do you win that endgame? You have 7-2-3-5 and 5 and 8. That's a new option. But then they have 7-3-6-1 and 7, and you don't actually win. I think this is a tie. I think this is a really nicely found tie. I think this is quite a dangerous situation. Akiyama, for once, used much of his time, and I think. I mean, I know this game ended in a tie because I know I recorded more than one game, but I think this does tie, right? And just because the game tied doesn't mean the players played it correctly, but I think this looks like a tie. I think this is a nice find, a nice way to block 5. And good move from Tezuka in 4. Like, Tezuka, I really like how he played this game. When a player doesn't win from an advantageous position, that does not mean they did anything wrong. It looks to me like just a well-played game in both directions. Oh. Okay, so Akiyama does play 6, and then we skip ahead, but it looks like it was a tie. Yeah, that's 5-5. All right, we move on to game 2. So once again, let's see what this starter is doing. Tezuka can capture it both ways, but with only 1 card each. And 7-1-5-3 and 6 is controlled by 6-5-1-5 and 9. And 3-6-6-1 and 2 just feels bad. I think Akiyama can both lock in from 6, but when he locks in from 6, he will set up a threat in 5, right? Like, if he plays like 6-3-2-5 and 6, he sets up 5-6-3-3 and 5, and that's not mutually shared. He'll have the first card locked in. He'll have some threat of maybe going in 1 and being pseudo-safe. Yeah, and locking in 2. This looks like a good starter to me. Which is to say, it creates stuff that is very difficult for Tezuka to approach. So if Tezuka wanted an easier time approaching it, there is a setup in 5. Yeah. Easier to see because it's all sames. 3-6-6-1 and 5. Now, I don't love this move because it gives up a lot of right power. And I suspect, I have no idea if it's like losing or tied, but my guess is that like anything in 2, let's say like 3-5-5-5 and 2, is just really uncomfortable after that move in 5. 3-6-6-1 and 5, try face in 2. 2 is safe. Yeah, you can go 6, locking in 3, but then Akiyama's going to go 9, and that's going to be safe to you as well. And he's just going to have these 5s facing out to the left that you just can't deal with. So that move might be okay. And like, looking at this, I'm not seeing options that appeal to me. I hate our corners. Our cards are really clunky together. I don't think we have other setups in 5, though I have not checked exhaustively, but I really don't think we do. I guess there's 7-1-5-3 in 5? That's a more interesting idea, actually. I kind of like that. Is it setting up the opponent too much? Not really, no. I kind of like 7-1-5-3. I realize it gives up ups, but I think it's harder to take advantage of our up issues. They only have 1 card with a 5 down rather than 3 cards with a 5 to the left. And it sets up cards like that I think are going to not have very much use. I kind of like the look of Snow Lion 5. That's maybe the move I'd end up on. Yeah, it's not amazing looking, but I like that it is the 5 facing down. It means if we play 2, 4, 6, 5, and 6 at some point, and they capture with 6, 3, 2, 5, and 9, we have a plus an 8 with 4, 4, 4, 6. It just seems like a move where maybe the numbers come together right in a way where 3, 6, 6, 1, and 5, despite setting up sames, feels like a move where they do not come together very well. I think this is a really tough spot because I think you don't have a way to address their corner. You don't have a way to start building something of your own, I don't think. There is 3, 6, 6, 1, and 1, I guess. That might be fine. That might be fine. Akiyama could play 6, but then you'll have options in 9, perhaps. Um, if they go 5, even if they have setups, which I haven't checked if they do, you can block 2 in a comfortable enough way. Yeah, 3, 6, 6, 1, and 1 might be fine. I'm really hesitant to give up what feels like this much power, but that's another possibility here. Yeah, this looks difficult for Tezuka. I don't know what I would feel very uncomfortable here. All right, Akiyama plays too quickly, but well, again, when I say that, this is not criticism of his moves. It is just annoying for the video making. 2, 4, 6, 5, and 7 is saying this card is my card with the least play. I agree. I think this is Tezuka's card with the least play against this starter. And it is something at least I can recapture. I am definitely way behind, right? I'm not particularly posing challenges to you, but this is a card out of my hand that doesn't particularly commit me to anything, and hopefully I can play a game from here. But now it is very much how is Akiyama going to attack this? Knowing Akiyama, he likes to go into 4, 6, or 8 here, which is also my preference for what that's worth. And I have more preference for 2 and 4 generally. He has more preference for 6 and 8. But here, 2 and 4 feel very logical, right? You know the opponent only has one attack on each. So if you go 2, 7, 1, 5, 3 is trouble landing in 6. So it's a nice way to basically lock in a card. Unless Akiyama set up a punish to 6, 5, 1, 5, and 9. Tezuka set up a punish, but he did not. And I don't think he had one available. 2 also potentially gives up 1, but it looks like you have 1 covered because that 2 facing up from the girl in 7 happens to help 6, 3, 2, 5. So 2 looks appealing. 6, you don't have a natural combo against the move in 2, but maybe you can set one up. And I think that we saw he played in 6. Didn't we just scroll ahead? I think that was a move in 6. So what could he play in 6 that sets up against 2? Either a 5 to the left or a 3 to the left will do it. So those seems like there are lots of options there. Literally any card in his hand sets up against 2. So 6 seems appealing as well. 4 and 8 seem much less appealing here just because they are easier for Tezuka to recapture. He does have multiple recaptures, and it feels nice to try to force the action around a card Tezuka has a lot of trouble with, the card in 3, rather than a card Tezuka is in good shape against, the card in 7. All right, my memory's not going. We do see a move in 6, and it does set up a same if 3, 6, 6, 1, and 2. So much like I talked about last game when there were cards in 2 and 3, and I think you sort of look at 6, 1, and 4 as the moves there, and the kind of general heuristics are, if I go in 6, do they have combo potential against it? And hopefully I have good plays in 5 and 9. If I go in 1, I want it to be safe or pseudo-safe. Otherwise, I'm usually pretty far behind if I go in 1, because they're going to be the first to get to lock in a card. If I go in 4, I need it to set up 5, or I really want to have a good setup for 5 there. 1 is inherently valuable, so I don't need to set it up as much. So my first priority is setting up 5. In this position, I believe you check 2, 9, 8. Very similar, right? 2, 9, and 8. Like, if there were only cards in 3 and 6, I would be checking 2, 9, 8. And I think the card in 7 it's still 298. Many people will add in 4. You'll see lots of games with people playing 1, but I am skeptical of all this. I know 4 is sometimes correct, and 1 is sometimes correct. And I was trying to figure out the heuristics to 1 at some point, but I did not put much work into it of like how to actually find good moves in 1. And I didn't get anywhere, or I didn't get far, so I don't remember any of it because I didn't come to any firm conclusions. And if you don't come to firm conclusions, it can be hard to remember stuff that you've never actually like played because I never go in 1 in these types of positions. So I think 298. 2, I think we can say looks pretty horrible. Um, I think the only times like you'd be happy about 2 getting comboed here is if you had a really good follow up in 1, and the card they're forced to land in 5 sets you up in 8. But I really don't think that's happening here. And those sequences are so scary anyway. Actually, there is one other version. This is reminiscent of that stupid game Vid played the other day, where he was playing against Akiyama. I think it was in the first round of this tournament, and he got into a Z that looked just horrific, but he could block 2 and 8, which were the side squares. And sometimes you can do a similar thing here. So, for instance, if you play 3, 6, 6, 1, and 2, and they play 5, you're down 7, 3. No, you're down 6, 4, because you have 3 cards in hand, and you have the card in 7. And sometimes you can tie because you have a good move for 1 or 9. Those spots are easier to find. But the other way you can sometimes tie is similar to the vid game, though that was a S or Z rather than a Q, but it works similarly. Is if you can just block the 2 side squares with high stuff facing out, you end up saving 7, and as long as you flip 5 with one of those moves, if you have safety in both 4 and 8, you can sometimes hold there. Doesn't look like you should have safety in those squares here, so not a viable idea. But occasionally there's a path to holding those Qs, as that jerk vid once showed. Okay. Anyway, so 2 looks horrible. 9, similar to the previous, really safety above all. If it's not safe, you gotta have combo potential, or just a really nice double capture to land in 5. Here, we definitely won't have a double capture in 5, right? If like 6-5-1-5 goes in 8, we ain't capturing that. So I think you gotta grab safety, right? If you're gonna go 9. Flipping 6 is less important. We can flip 6 from 5. That's probably not going to go away. So 2, 5, 3, 7, and 9 seems like a candidate move. We still have some pressure against 3. We can't touch it immediately, but maybe we will be able to in the future. If 4, 4, 4, 6 lands in 5, they don't have combo play against that. Maybe we can snag the card in 6. 2, 5, 3, 7, and 9 looks bad and requires calculation, or looks poor. But there's a pretty good chance it holds, I think. I think that's a plausible idea here. Yeah, if we're betting whether it ties or loses, I think it's close. Like I think it's on that borderline, and if you did some calculation, you could be much more confident. But I don't really see why it should lose. So I'm gonna be on the side of tie, but I'm somewhere like 60-40. Like on my scale of 0 to 100, where 0 is I'm definitely lost, 100 is I'm definitely winning, 50 is not necessarily it's a tie, but like equal chance of winning and losing, which could be it's a guaranteed tie because that obviously is equal chance of winning and losing. And 25 is halfway between a tie and a loss. I'm at like a 30, maybe a 33 for 2, 5, 3, 7, and 9. Curious what other people's instincts on that move are. The other thing I'm interested in, though, is I spotted this move in 8 I kind of like. And I kind of hate it because I hate giving up 3-6-6-1 here. But I think 3-6-6-1 and 8 is kind of fancy here. And I was drawn to it when I noticed that 2, 5, 3, 7, and 9, if they go 8 and we go 4, 4, 4, 6, and 5, they have no play against that. So that makes me think like maybe 4, 4, 4, 6 landing in 5 after 8 and 9 are filled is the game plan I'm going for. And so 3, 6, 6, 1, and 8, if they go 9, I feel like we go 5 and we should be okay. I don't think they have anything there, and I don't think they have any setups in 1 that can get set up both ways, and maybe not either way. They can set up one way. They could play like 3, 5, 5, 5, and 4, and they'd set up in 1 and they'd set up 4, but we block 4 and they haven't set up 2 at all. So, and the other nice thing about 3661 and 8, which I'm just noticing now, is we don't have a great card for 9. Now, we don't always need it, because again, 9 is inherently valuable. But also, 2 of their cards in 5 do not flip our card in 8. So if they want to flip 8, they kind of have to play 3-5-5-5 in 5, and then we have threats of sames in 2. And so we have obvious play there that is promising, right? Or is at least threatening to them. All right, I think 3661 and 8 is my most promising idea here, but I'd also guess 2537 and 9 is a tie. Now, the solver will tell you something ridiculous, and I don't know, 1 or 5 or whatever is a tie. But I think the sane way to do this is 8 or 9. And while I'm not entirely sure either of them tie, I bet you at least one of them ties. And I think the goal of your 5 minutes this move is to figure out which one of them it is. All right, let's see what Tezuka did. Tezuka goes 5. Does this set up something in 4 or 8? No. Oh, I should say, I did check the rules before. This is a no plus wall. So I may have miscalculated some. I definitely did. Yeah, this is no plus wall, right? Is this no plus wall? Am I making that up? I thought I checked that, but then there wasn't the combos back. Oh no, I screw up every analysis. Every one. I look and go, there's no plus wall. And then we start looking at the game, and the first thing that happens is I'm like, well, that's comboed back by a plus wall. Oh, jeez. I'd like to think, this may not be true, that I'm better at keeping rule variations in my head when I'm more active, but not good. Not good, Bob. All right, that said, I'm really uncomfortable about this move in 5. I think it's kind of trying to grab something in the position and get rid of a card that's bad for our hand. But this card just gets us more value in 9. And also, anytime something is played in 5, there's so much potential for the opponent to have some play against it. Like, is the fact that 6515 or 6325 has a plus in 8, is that going to matter? Yeah, it is. It is no plus wall. So ignore a lot of my analysis from earlier. Sorry about that. Is that going to matter? Maybe not. But, like, it's just so easy for there to be some kind of play we can't keep control of. My instinct here is to go 2. My instinct is to go tri-face in 2. I think 6515 sweeps the bottom so clearly that I want to leave that open for 6515 to dominate. Right? Like, 6515 just kills it there. Anything put in 9, 6515 takes as well as comboing 5 and 7. Anything put in 8, 6515 takes as well as taking 6. So I'd really like to leave that open for a 6515. And the reason I like tri-face in 2 is 6235 is going to go at least even on the left, because their only capture on the left is 3661 and 1, but then we have the same to combo that back. So that looks very appealing to me. It's hard to imagine that's not winning, but I might be missing something. But it's harder to be missing something when there's no combos in 4 or 8. I wonder if Tezuka just miscounted and thought this set up Snow Lion in 4. Entirely possible. We have all done things like this. Tezuka tends to have a nice feel for moves in 5, but also I think is overly drawn to 5. So he makes a higher rate of good moves there than most players, but also a higher rate of sketchy moves there. But this was obviously a tough position to defend, and I'm not at all confident of either of my preferred moves. And as I said, the solver probably has some ridiculous tie-in 5, because it so often does. But I don't think this is it, and I think Akiyama will go in 2. I am incorrect. All right. So I thought that's just like automatic sweeper for the bottom row. Why would we ever let this out of our hand? Currently, Tezuka leads 6-4. But that 3 facing down means 6325 actually controls the bottom row like just as well as 6515, or almost as well. 6515 could take 3661 if it landed an 8, and 6325 can't. But everything else, no, it also can't take a 3 to the left. But still, it's probably a sufficient sweeper. And then 3555 with that 6 facing down sweeps the top. Does Snow Lion and 9 tie? No, because then I think you switch them up. Because you can put Tri-Face in 8 and you lead 6-4, and their only capture 6-3-2-5 can take back. Yeah, this looks winning as well. Let's see how it goes. We do see Snow Lion in 9. Oh, yeah, 8 has the plus. I forgot about the plus in 8. So that did matter. Cool. Yeah, because that flips the extra card, this also is sufficient. And 3555 sweeps the top. And Tezuka happily goes into the big loss, which is the classy way to go. Shame it's not 9-1. Nicely played by Akiyama, I think. I like how he handled this game quite a bit. I think a very strong starter, very tough situation for Tezuka, and just played well from there. And the first game, I think his move in 5 was great, right? Because Tezuka played really strongly and had a very nice advantage that one after 3-2-4. And Akiyama, really nice move to just block 5, get rid of the danger square, and have it calculated out well that he could block squares. Now, I might be wrong about everything on that game, because again, I forgot there wasn't plus wall. I think the only spots I was screwing up on that were in... I mean, I was screwing up with it technically everywhere. Oh, that's why 6515 didn't sweep, because no plus wall. See, even when I said it, like, only when I'm constantly saying it can I keep it properly in mind. So it made sense to keep 6325, and maybe my move in 2 didn't work at all, because I talk about how there's plus wall, and then as soon as I look back at the position, or no plus wall, I completely forget. Just totally moronic commentary. Apologies for that. Hopefully some of it was on point, and hopefully I'm correct that Akiyama played really nicely here. But who can say? Who can say? Certainly not me.